Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Neurodivergent podcast. My name's Danielle Sullivan, and I'm here today with my friend, Dr. Elrod Whitney.
So here's what we're doing today. I'm here for this new podcast series. We're calling it Neurodivergent Community Q&A. And honestly, Danielle, it's because I have questions. Every time I meet with you and every time I engage with something at neurodivergent.com, I always learn so much, and yet I always have so many questions. Newsflash, I am not alone. I think I'm not the only one having questions. And so you and I are here today. We're just going to take up a question and answer it if we can.
We are not promising easy or tidy answers to anything, but we are neurodivergent people raising neurodivergent kids with tons of experience coaching and teaching and otherwise engaging in this stuff. So I think we have a lot to give to you.
Danielle, now I'm feeling nervous. Like, what if we don't have a lot to give? But I'll tell you one thing is that I found in life, even identifying the question is usually a huge step. So if nothing else, we're going to discuss some questions. And if someone wants to call it answers, say that's cool.
Hey, everybody. We had so much to say in our last episode about food and cooking and meal planning that today we are putting out a part 2. So please enjoy the continuation of our conversation about how to feed yourself. One more technique I wanted to mention that has worked for a lot of clients. I remember when I was a kid, we didn't do meal plans in my house. And my mother said it was because she liked feeling like she had choices. Right?
Yeah.
If she wanted ravioli that day or she wanted eggplant parm that day, then she could pick something and not be beholden to this meal plan. If you're like that, I totally get that. One of the things that has worked for other clients is to have theme days, right? So this is like your Tuesday taco night or your Friday pizza night, but to have like a day that's pasta day, but maybe you do different kinds of pasta, or a day that's like, bean day, but you do different beans, or you could have like some kind of ethnic or cultural theme, right? It's Mexican night, it's Italian food night, whatever. And often that will help people plan in a concrete way or think concretely about the ingredients they have to buy and also not get stuck in a rut. And I also want to say, if you eat the same thing every day, that's fine. Like, don't worry about it. But if you're somebody who likes to eat a lot of different kinds of foods, but you feel overwhelmed when you look at the thousands of recipes that are on the internet every day, just theming it, right? And knowing that on Thursdays you have rice and beans and cheese in some configuration. That can be really helpful. And it also is nice for certain kinds of kids because they know what to expect. Like, even if you're eating enchiladas one week and chilaquiles the next week.
Right. Crunchy taco this week, soft taco that week.
You're still going to have those same ingredients, right? And so if your kids are ingredient kids, you get to have something different as the adult if that's something you want to do. And they get to have basically the same stuff, realistically. Maybe their pasta will be in different shape or it'll be a kidney bean instead of a black bean, but you can adjust all that to your family's preference.
No, you're right. That's very helpful. And I guess the other thing that came up for me, I was always working against this vision of what it was supposed to be.
Oh my gosh, yes. That's a really
So I care a lot about balanced meal. I grew up very choosy about foods and also in a not super veggie eating family.
Yeah.
And so, of course, as an adult, I felt very responsible for nourishing the children. For myself, I would like to be eating a diet that includes fiber and that includes vegetables and plant materials. So how to do that when there's no way everyone's going to like it, that has turned into a huge problem. And the mind shift that has really helped me on that has been planning. Because then with planning, I could see over the whole week. And I could see that maybe if this day is literally like a cheeseburger and fruit, then maybe the next night is going to be something that adds the variety that I want.
Yeah.
And let's say this child is never eating any of the vegetables that I picked for that week, right? Well, okay, fruit is also a part of fruit and vegetable. So can I put a fruit there? And obviously different people have different dietary needs, but when I could see it in the context of a whole week, I let myself off the hook about some things. And I also saw that the diet was more varied than I thought. It didn't have to mean that every single night had all of those, it didn't have to be fibrous, whole grain, and a vegetable. It didn't have to do it all in one night. You could sort of just think in the general period of time. That really helped me. The advice that you always hear, and this is, I have good and bad with this, is that you need to involve other people besides you in the cooking. But because part of it is all on you, and that's a lot for one person.
Yeah.
And a lot of families resentment can build, or in a relationship resentment can build. And the answer to that is either adjust your attitude or adjust what's happening, right? And so I always struggled with that because I had different reasons why that didn't work in my household. And I did feel very put out about it.
Yeah.
And I also found that I did things like I got my kids to be responsible for one night a week. That worked for a little while. But I did have to teach them to cook, though, so that I was still doing work, a different kind of work. Or like, I did have a partner doing this night a week or make a meal, but the meal that partner was going to make was that person's go-to thing I didn't even like. So I wasn't going to be happy with what they cooked. So what are my choices there? I could have just accepted it, or I could go on cooking, or I could decide that we're eating something different. And I never really worked that out in the course of my different relationships, but it did open me up to the idea that maybe this night I'm not providing a dinner and we're just eating different things. My kids were old enough, I was able to say, oh, tonight is forage. And forage means, leftovers. Or sometimes I say smorgasbord, right?
Yeah.
And I just get out all the leftovers. And I also like get out the dry box of mac and cheese. And I get it out because we are all people who can't think behind the cabinet, right? We have to see it. And so I just made this visual menu of all the things that were in the house and then just put it all away after, and people eat what they eat, letting go of it being always me. And also the acceptance that is going to mean that some of my goals for the food will not be met.
Yeah.
And, there's years in which you can do that nutritionally in situations where you can, and there's other situations where you can't. You've got a nutritional responsibility or something. So take it or leave it. I still struggle there.
Yeah. So I'm moving next week as of recording, and I will be living with other adults full time for the first time in I don't know, a long time, at least 5 years. What we do now is one of my partners lives here part time. And so half the week I'm responsible for all meals. And the other half of the week, he's responsible for 2/3 of the meals because he's at work the other time. So I still take breakfast. But realistically, my kids are mostly getting their own breakfast. When we first started doing this, it was because I had kind of put my foot down against just doing all the meals. I was tired and I was overwhelmed and I was bored and I just didn't want to do it anymore. But the first couple of times he cooked, because he didn't have any experience really cooking except for himself when he was out of college for a short period of time before we got together. He was still really learning, when do I start the water so it'll boil on time so the thing will get out on time, right? And there were many days where food that was put together wasn't something I would have done. The food was very late compared to what I would have done. And I really had to deal with my own, if I want time off, I need to let him invest in this learning space.
Yeah. And kids are crying and everyone's grouchy and you can just see them next morning getting messed up. Yeah.
But also this is not a long-term, people are uncomfortable for a brief period and then it's fine, right? And so understanding the difference between this is actually as urgent as it feels, and I am feeling urgency that is not real, because realistically everyone's going to eat in half an hour, it's going to be fine, right? So, but part of that was investing in the space to let other people take that from me. And part of it was also realizing this, sometimes he's going to cook something I don't like. At that point, it's my responsibility to get some cereal or something, right? I don't have to make a big meal for myself, but I can go to my safe foods list, which I have written down as a visual aid in my phone. That's I will always eat grits. I will always eat cereal. I will always eat toast. I will always eat soup with soggy stuff in it, right? What's my list? And on a day that I'm just too tired and it's not my responsibility to cook, I'm not saying you should have cereal for every meal probably, but having cereal once in a while is not going to hurt anything. Because you're right about that long term, right? That we're having to think okay, in the long term, what is this affording people to do it this way, right? And in the long term, a bowl of cereal for dinner is not going to really do anything except feed people, which is our main goal, right?
Yeah.
It's to feed people, just to be fed.
We do that with yogurt. It's if you don't like something, there's almost always a yogurt. And some of us eat yogurt. So go get the yogurt. Is it that you would want to be having yogurt for dinner all the time? No, but that night, I just didn't want to think about it. Eat a yogurt. Having a few foods on hand that meet your nutritional standards and desires and are zero work. That's super important. That depends on your nutritional goals. So what it's going to be, but maybe it is yogurt. Maybe it is cereal in that example. Maybe there is a certain microwave thing that you're willing to.
We have a lot of microwave things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last thing I kind of want to touch on is when you're cooking for just you. As an adult, I know times when I've lived alone or now I'm divorced, so my kids sometimes go to their dad, and one's at college now. the problem of cooking for just you, in a way, it's a gift, right? Because I get to have whatever I want. On the other hand, it seems like a lot of work for just me. And the incentive of everyone coming to the table is gone. So what do you have to say about cooking for yourself? I know a couple strategies, but I'm curious what you know.
When I'm on my own, I mostly don't eat the same foods my kids do. I'm even on a mostly different eating schedule for them. In the morning, I have my bagel and my peanut butter and my fruit and my coffee. And then I have that basically the same every day. And then for lunch, I will have either leftovers from the night before if there's something in the fridge, or I'll cobble. What would you call it? A smorgasbord, like scavenger hunt,
Smorgasbord,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, what we call it cobbling in my house. It's like, what are your go-to foods that are available? So there's leftovers, there's yogurts, there's somebody's
Hummus and
half a
pretzels
sandwich.
for me.
Yeah, like that, like
Always
that.
hummus and pretzels.
So for like sometimes I'll cook, but usually I'm cobbling for lunch. But we keep foods around. Like I make sure there are hard-boiled eggs in the fridge. I make sure we have yogurt. I make sure we have bread and I can make a PB&J or whatever. And then dinner is really the cooking time. And I think that's just because it's when I tend to have the most time. And I actually have a decent amount of energy in the late afternoon, though I don't in the mid-afternoon. So like lunch is like I'm about to take a nap and then I'm just eating real quick before then. So then I'm only really planning to cook one meal a day, right? When it's for me. And I try to make it so that there's different levels of effort depending on the day of the week. So I think if you look at all the meals you like to eat, some of them are really low effort. It's your yogurt or your can of soup that you heat up. And some of them are like, I'm going to make myself a fancy omelet and chop all these things. And that's like a higher effort meal. So I personally just try to match like my energy to the level of meal. So if I really want an omelet, but I'm like exhausted, then I'm like, okay, well, can I bake an egg? Or can I make some
Yeah.
egg salad out of the eggs in the fridge? If I have a lot of energy and I feel like it, then maybe I'll make a fancy tart that I can eat all week, right? And I don't know that this helps so much with the executive function piece, but for me it's really about what is my capacity and how can I match that to like the thing I most want to eat. And then if I can't think of anything I want to eat, I literally just have leftovers again or you know, have what I see.
Yeah.
Because I also learned that part of my problem, and I think a lot of autistic people's problem with food is we get overwhelmed, right? We look at all the choices and we go, I don't know what I'm feeling like. I don't know how much I need. Am I even really hungry? And we just sort of like panic and run away. And
Yeah.
we don't
Yeah. Oh,
eat.
the cleaning, just all
Yeah.
of it. Now it's too
And
late. I can't decide.
and so part of what I've kind of decided at some point in my life decided was just pick the thing you see and eat that. And sometimes it won't totally match your nutritional needs or like your ideal, but it's also like I know that I'm going to function better if I eat something, even if it's not perfect. And, if that's cereal again for the second time that day, or if it's the leftover mac and cheese, or if it's the veggie chicken nuggets in the fridge, I'm naming all, or a banana, right? But if I see it, if I'm starting to feel overwhelmed, my rule is really like, if you see it, just eat that.
If you've learned to notice that feeling and then to just shove something in so that feeling will
Yeah.
go away,
And
then you can deal with whatever else.
part of it was I would just not eat for a long time because of overwhelm. And
Yeah.
then I would be so fatigued that it would get harder. Like it was a snowball rolling down the
Oh,
hill.
yeah. That's why I had a meltdown every single evening.
Exactly. And so what I also started doing was buying candy bars from the grocery store because I had read, I don't know, somebody's blog post or something who was like, having the M&Ms is better than not eating, right? Kind of like we say to new moms, fed is best, right? It doesn't matter
Right,
what you
right.
feed your baby. It's different for babies. Don't give them M&Ms. But like at some point, like, yeah, M&Ms are not a nutritionally balanced food. However, they will give your brain some sugar so that you can make a decision about a nutritionally balanced food, right? And so I just started keeping chocolate around because I will always eat chocolate. And that way I could get enough energy to go do something better. Even if that was the next step was just eating what was in front of me. So, okay,
Right.
that's a peanut butter and jelly. That's not like nutritionally amazing, but that would
Yeah.
give me something to take the next best step of eating the next best thing. Right.
Right. Right.
So moving away from that perfectionism piece and like, oh, if I don't make a fancy
Yeah.
salad, I'm not worth eating. It's like, no, eat anything, really. Eating is still better than not eating, regardless of the nutritional content of the food.
Yeah. Noticing that feeling, but another way is preventing that feeling.
Yes. It's
right. By
way better
eating
to
on
do
the
that.
schedule.
Yeah.
So I'm
And I
somebody
do that
who
now.
Yeah. it's easy to get, like, if you're a person who works by yourself, which I am, if your job is the kind of job where you sit at a computer and then you take your lunch when you're ready, then it's easy to get involved in what you're doing and forget to eat. Or if you're busy with a lot of responsibilities, it's easy to think you don't have time. And both of those things have happened to me. And what that means then is that when supper time comes, when I did have responsibility and I was overwhelmed and all the things you're describing, I also was unfueled for that. Helped me to prioritize lunch. And I do now have an alarm for lunch. And when I worked outside the home, I was careful to always pack a lunch right there with my dinner. It was leftovers every day. That's how I did it. And now that I work at home, it's kind of having things visible in the fridge, like you said, that are at least a snack. And I haven't been eating M&Ms, but I think I would be had I not, provided something else for myself so that I just didn't reach that point. It's a little bit like, it's just like meltdown prevention in general for a neurodivergent person. For me, that requires eating a little food. And I kind of learned, like, at 3 o'clock, if I feel grumpy, eat a granola bar, which for me, that's like, I guess, my M&Ms. Well, I just wanted to loop back to the single person for a minute, because I think the food waste and the sense that it's a lot of trouble for just me is a real barrier. And so here are some ways that I have contended with that. And then I've helped other people contend with it, just practical stuff. One was to realize that the freezer cooking isn't just for a big family. That, for example, the recipe's too big, or I have to buy this whole bag of something and then I won't use it all and it'll go bad. Well, I would have people or myself make the big recipe. Then pack it, eat what I'm going to eat, take another one for my lunch, and then what's left, pack that for a dinner for another night and put it in my freezer. So basically making yourself a TV dinner. And so if it was butter chicken and rice, say, then now I've created a little frozen block of butter chicken and rice, which can go to work or it can be a nighttime thing, and just cook it in a microwave. Just use the defrosty thing on the microwave. For some reason, I get real hung up on I didn't thaw it out. Your microwave can deal with that for you. And I never really used that part of the microwave, but I'm just here to say defrost the microwave and having little containers. So it's not necessarily providing for a meal, it's providing for you in the future, providing for the family. And then the other thing was to think about, what are the multiple meals I can make with this ingredient? So, the broccoli, I'm not going to eat this whole head of broccoli one night. Well, can you think of 3 things you like with broccoli and consider just having a lot of, have a lot of broccoli. This is broccoli week. And then next week, like, oh, I'm never going to eat the whole bag of whatever it is you buy. Okay, well, what 3 things can I have this week? And let the theme week be the perishable ingredient.
That's a great idea.
It requires letting yourself off the hook of thinking that you're supposed to have different things every night. I had these rules in my mind about what constituted good meals.
Yeah, and I was just going to kind of come back to the idea that I think if you're at M&M stage, right, that the next step on that, like we always talk about this upward spiral, right? Like we're trying to build on our skills, right? So if your current skill level is M&M stage, that's fine. And also maybe the next skill up you want to work on, right, is basically what Anne was talking about thinking a little bit ahead, right? So before you get to M&M, what's like, can you just do lunch, right? And then when you got lunch done, can you just do breakfast? And also, I think there is a part of this of thinking about the different versions of you, right? It feels when you're in the zone that you can't break for lunch, but later you deserve the food and the energy and the capacity that lunch is going to bring, right? And so you deserve food regardless of what you do, right? Outside of productivity. But also you are investing into your future self in a positive way by taking that break and going and eating a meal you'll enjoy, rather than trying to eke out 20 more minutes of work. That's not even going to be very high quality because you didn't eat, right? So there is a piece in there of also just thinking through, like, realistically, what is working through lunch going to give you? It's going to give you less energy for later and poorer workout.
Right. That's often true. That is often true. The place where I would get into trouble with that is with writing, where it feels to me, and
it feels urgent.
This is only partly true. First of all, it is true that you lose your train of thought and it's hard to get back. That's true. And especially for those of us who really go deep dive and have that, you might call it a hyper focus, or you might call it like the monotropic, looking down the telescope or microscope or something into your interest. It hurts a little to stop what I'm doing. And so when I realized that was why I was not eating lunch, That's how I learned to pack myself a lunch, even when I'm at home, so that I don't have to feel that pain as much.
Yeah.
Same with cooking. I got in a mood there where I was doing meal prep on Sundays. And I mean, Sunday, I already kind of had Sunday blues. There's other stuff I want to be doing. Maybe it's beautiful outside and my kids are outside playing with their dad and I'd be inside like
You wish.
browning some meat, and I hated that. Well, once I figured out that I didn't mind cooking, but I hated doing it then, I was able to adjust when I was doing it, right? Like do it Sunday morning before everything as opposed to in the afternoon. And also to make that time more fun for me, whether that was having a friend do it with you, whether that's involving your children, or in my case, it was about listening to a podcast while I was doing it. I kind of forgot that I could listen to things while cooking. And I enjoy cooking, but I don't like having to do anything. I'm allergic to having to do anything.
I'm also like that.
There may be a profile that describes this that one could learn more about at Neurodivergent. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm the same way though, and I think you're right that adding some level of joy and choice to the task, even if you kind of have to do the task, is so important.
Yeah, and that a lot of things that I hate to do are just kind of don't wanna. I don't wanna, and I feel like I'm supposed to, and I don't wanna. Sometimes there's something I do wanna that I can layer on with it.
Yeah,
that's my trick to get myself to make food.
We should do another episode about the don't want us. I could say so much about that, and this is already so long. So
yeah. Okay, well, I do want to come back to that in another episode, and I don't want to forget about it. So we will make that plan to ask another question about that another time.
Cool. Okay. And I know I've seen that question a million times in my email, so I'm sure some of you out there will be waiting for that one too. So make sure you are subscribed. Haha, this is my plug. Make sure you're subscribed on Spotify or YouTube or wherever you stream this thing. And come check out and learn more at neurodivergent.com. We have transcripts and links and lots of other resources. Links are also below. We have a course on visual supports you can get access to online or on our Patreon at patreon.com/neurodivergent. You can also get coaching support from me or Anne, and I'm at neurodivergent.com, as is Anne, but also check out Anne's stuff at AnneElrodWhitney.com. Lots of good resources there.
That's right. And, I would make a plug for membership in the community at Neurodivergent. If you've not tried that, it is a place for me where I can go and ask some of these questions when I haven't yet heard a podcast on my specific question. The discussions that go on in the Discord server that is shared by community members is really a huge support for me. In the meantime, I hope that you have something yummy for dinner tonight or for breakfast tomorrow, or whenever it is that you're listening to this. And we're going to look forward to you next time.
Thank you so much. Remember, we are all in this together.